Welcome! You're listening to the Uncharted Lancaster podcast, where we explore the hidden histories, forgotten places, and long-buried secrets of Lancaster County. Using modern digital storytelling tools, each episode brings a new piece of local lore to life, revealing the strange, the surprising, and the stories history left behind. Let's begin.
All right, let's unpack this. Today we are undertaking a substantial deep dive into a structure built almost 130 years ago that stands as this perfect, magnificent monument to American Gilded Age ambition.
It really is. Castle made of stone, and as we'll find out, a lot of secrets, right in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
We are talking about the Roslyn Mansion, located at 1035 Marietta Avenue.
And this dive, it goes so far beyond just the architecture. Roslyn is a, 9,320 square foot chateau-esque style house, completed in 1896.
Yeah, and our source material for this is just so rich. We've got architectural analysis, detailed family history, and I think the most surprising part, these astonishingly candid personal journals from people who lived there later.
Right, those journals are where the story really gets interesting.
Our mission here is to take you beyond just a simple historical tour. We really want to uncover the true meaning, the immense significance of this place.
And I think a big part of that is understanding the gap between its public presentation, as this symbol of success, and its private reality.
Which was, at times, a crushing, really uncomfortable financial burden.
Absolutely. We'll explore the legacy of the two central figures who brought this vision to life. Peter T. Watt, the self-made mercantile mogul who co-founded the legendary Watt & Shand department store.
And his go-to architect, C. Emlen Urban, the celebrated architect whose prolific work basically shaped the look of modern Lancaster.
He really did.
Now, Roslyn isn't just a big house, it's officially a big deal. You noted it's a level 1 landmark. Let's set the scene by defining what that actually means for our listeners right off the bat.
Sure. It's the highest classification possible on the Lancaster County Historical Sites Register. Level 1 means the site is considered of exceptional or top importance.
So this isn't just a nice old house designation.
Not at all. It's a designation that's reserved for structures that are truly iconic, historically pivotal, and, architecturally singular within the region. Roslyn just ticks all those boxes. It makes it one of the most important private residences in the entire county.
And its location, that speaks volumes about the owner's desire for prestige. It sits at the prominent corner of Marietta Avenue and North President Avenue.
But what I found fascinating in the research was Urban's deliberate placement of the house itself.
Right. It's not built right up to the street.
No. Urban purposefully sited the house well off North President Avenue, even though that was a primary thoroughfare. This wasn't an accident. It was fundamental to the design intent.
So why do that? Why go to the trouble of sacrificing all that front yard space?
It was all about creating a sense of arrival. By setting it back, they could incorporate a formal gated coach entry.
Ah, so it's performance.
It's pure performance architecture. When guests arrived in their carriages, they'd pass through these impressive stone pillars, offering this moment of anticipation. They would then proceed up a sweeping drive, past curated gardens and a fountain, before reaching the imposing 3-story stone edifice.
It's all designed to impress you from the second you approach the property line.
Exactly. It sets up this feeling of entering a secluded estate, which is precisely the ethos of the architectural style Urban chose, chateau-esque or baronial.
And that was the ultimate status symbol style.
Absolutely. It's a Renaissance revival style that was hugely popular in the United States from about 1860 to 1900. It drew heavy influence from the magnificent, irregular silhouettes of the chateaus, the castles you'd find in the Loire Valley of France.
So this wasn't about quiet, reserved taste. This was a public declaration.
Oh, absolutely. Architectural historians actually nicknamed it the show-off style for America's wealthiest citizens.
The show-off style. I love that.
Because it so powerfully symbolized the owner's prosperity and, their spectacular commercial success. And just to drive home the elite status of this location, Roslyn sits catty-cornered from Wheatland.
Which was President James Buchanan's historic home.
Right. So Watt was literally staking his claim right next to historical American power with his own commercial castle.
You cannot miss that message. Roslyn is a structure that was built to broadcast success. So let's shift our focus now to the man whose ambition demanded such a structure. Peter T. Watt. His story is like a pure immigrant triumph.
It really is. Peter T. Watt was born Peter Twad in Rothiesholm, Stronsay, one of the remote Orkney Islands of Scotland. He came from a distinctly humble agricultural background.
And the sources reveal this amazing detail about his identity shift when he moved to the United States in 1870. Get this, the sources suggest he decided to adopt the middle initial T when he emigrated.
And it seems like such a small thing, but it's not a small thing at all. It's brilliant branding and really deep social commentary.
How so?
Well, according to family lore and historical records, having a middle initial at that time was viewed as a status symbol, especially in American commerce. It suggested formality, education, social standing.
So by adding the T, he was signaling something.
He was signaling to his peers and to the public, I have moved up in the world.
Wow. So the T isn't just an initial, it's a declarative Gilded Age business card. A fantastic detail.
It is. And this ambition quickly translated into retail success. By 1878, he'd partnered with James Shan and Gilbert Thompson to open the New York store.
And that store, even in its earliest version, immediately stood out from the local competitors.
It did. They focused heavily on foreign and domestic dry goods and explicitly targeted the upscale merchandise market. They set themselves apart not just with inventory, but with customer service, which was a pretty radical concept for the time.
And their service policy became the stuff of legend.
It really did. They had an unwritten, ironclad policy of staying open until the very last customer left.
Wow. Imagine that level of dedication in modern retail.
It's almost impossible. That fostered incredible loyalty. Thompson died the next year, and the store was renamed Watt & Shan by 1885.
And that partnership was just explosive. The store expanded aggressively in downtown Lancaster, gradually just absorbing adjacent properties.
The scale of the growth is hard to even fathom. By 1991, the downtown flagship store had ballooned to a colossal 220,000 square feet.
That's huge.
It was a true commercial labyrinth cobbled together over time from 7 different buildings. For decades, Watt & Shan was the absolute center of downtown merchandising and culture.
And Watt's financial legacy reflects that dominance. When Peter T. Watt died in 1921, his estate was valued at a stunning, $1,451,602.65 in 1922.
A phenomenal sum for that period.
And that figure included 2,000 shares of Watt & Shan stock valued at $186,000. This wealth, this commercial triumph, provided the foundation for a structure like Roslyn.
It's the ultimate physical manifestation of his life's work.
Right. And to create that physical manifestation, he needed an architect who understood not just construction, but also ambition. And that brings us to see Emlen Urban.
Urban was born in 1863, showed early talent, graduated high school in 1880. He spent his early career apprenticing in major firms in Scranton and Philadelphia,
Including the Willis G. Hale firm, which I read was famous for its flamboyant, attention-grabbing architectural style.
That's right. So Urban was being trained in the language of opulence from the very beginning.
But his career trajectory truly launched when he returned to Lancaster in 1886. The connection between him and Watt wasn't just a lucky break, it was engineered.
That's what the historical record suggests. By 1888, Urban made a very strategic business decision. He relocated his office to 10.5 East King Street.
And why is that address so significant?
Because that was the address of the Watt & Shan department store. He was positioning himself right next to the source of the city's greatest commercial capital.
So proximity led to partnership.
It did. And that one decision launched an incredible, successful, and enduring 40-year relationship between owner and architect. Urban was only 31 years old when Watt retained him for the Roslyn Commission in 1892.
And that partnership, it solidified Urban's reputation as the indispensable architect of Lancaster. From the 1890s right through the 1920s, if you wanted a major civic or commercial building, you hired Urban.
His portfolio is just astonishing.
So give us the highlights of his local impact.
Well, he designed the Central Market, which is still a cherished landmark today. He designed the Grius Building, which stood for years as Lancaster's only skyscraper, dominating the skyline.
And of course, the famous Beaux-Arts facade of the downtown Watt & Shan building in 1898.
Exactly. And that facade is a great example of preservation done right. Because it was so iconic, it was saved and incorporated into the modern Marriott and Convention Center complex.
A testament to his genius. But he wasn't just a local star, though. He had deep connections outside the city.
Most notably with Milton Hershey. Urban was the designer of key buildings in Hershey, Pennsylvania between 1903 and 1926.
Which includes the original Hershey Chocolate Company offices and the enormous community building in Hershey Theater Complex. So this one partnership with Peter T. Watt launched a career that shaped not just Lancaster, but really central Pennsylvania's entire industrial landscape.
It's remarkable. Roslyn, essentially, stands as the foundation stone for one of the region's most important architectural careers.
Which brings us back to the structure itself. Roslyn, a true monument forged in stone and wood, Watt engaged Urban for the commission on May 3, 1892, acquired the deed in May 1894, and the mansion was substantially completed by March 1896.
And looking at the design, it's a textbook chateau-esque structure. Large, asymmetrical 2.5 stories. It's defined by these distinctive features like stepped gables, round turrets with conical roofs.
And a ton of windows and dormers. I read it needed 6 chimneys just to handle the heating demands of the interior.
Exactly. The materials themselves just broadcast expense and permanence. This wasn't local fieldstone he was using, was it?
Not at all. The exterior is constructed entirely of blue limestone, which is known as Avondale stone. It had to be quarried and transported all the way from Chester County, Pennsylvania.
Which was a significant logistical and financial commitment back then.
Absolutely. The hipped roof is composed of red Vermont slate, renowned for its quality and durability, and those signature conical turrets are topped with custom copper finials. It was built to stand for centuries.
We talked about the staged entry experience earlier. Let's delve into the architecture of those entrances because they really establish a hierarchy of guests.
Right. So the North President Avenue side was the formal, gated coach entrance. This was for the really important guests arriving by carriage or, later by automobile.
You have those impressive stone pillars, the formal gate, leading directly to the centerpiece porte cochere.
Which is the covered entry designed for dropping off passengers in any weather.
And the porte cochere itself is highly ornamented. It serves as this visual hub. It's topped with a balustrade, and directly above it is a large, dramatic, elliptical stained glass window on the second floor. It was meant to be a grand, sheltered welcome.
And then in sharp contrast, the Marietta Avenue elevation housed the formal pedestrian entrance.
Yeah, and that pedestrian side offered a completely different architectural statement. Well, Urban designed this side with strong, almost perfect symmetry, featuring twin turrets flanking a 3-bay porch supported by paired ionic columns. It feels a bit more grounded, more classical, but still unmistakably imposing.
And that 4-foot-wide front door, made of solid chestnut paneling with round beveled glass, that was the gateway to the interior spectacle.
And what a spectacle. Stepping into the grand hall, the sheer scale of it just hits you immediately.
The hall features a massive 21-foot-high coffered ceiling, intricately paneled walls, and these elaborate carvings that define the space.
It's a transition space, yes, but it functions more like a cathedral of commerce. It immediately forces your eye upwards, emphasizing the height and the expense.
But if the stone exterior is the monument, the interior woodwork is the true testament to the Gilded Age's material decadence and craftsmanship.
The source material provides a stunning inventory of it. The house showcases this extensive and varied use of wood, including cherry, rich walnut, imported mahogany, fir, exotic tiger maple, shimmering bird's eyes maple, oak, birch, and ash.
It's not just a list of woods, it's a materials lesson. Why use so many different types?
Well, it was partly decorative, allowing different rooms to have unique tonal characters, cherry for warmth, mahogany for formality. But it was also a statement of pure expense.
I see.
Each of these woods required a different milling process, different sourcing. Tiger maple, for example, is highly sought after for its distinctive wavy, striped figure, but that makes it very hard to work with, which increases its cost exponentially.
And bird's eye maple is equally rare, right?
Exactly. It's characterized by these tiny swirling patterns that look like eyes. Using these materials throughout the house demonstrated not just wealth, but access to the finest suppliers and artisans.
And they applied this material obsession down to details you barely even see, like the pocket doors.
This is one of the details I love most because it speaks to a hidden commitment to craft that just defies efficiency.
Explain that. What's so special about the pocket doors?
Well, pocket doors slide into the wall. These doors were dual-faced. The side facing the library would be paneled in cherry to match the library's trim, but the side facing the hall might be oak or walnut to match the grand hall.
So when the door was closed, regardless of which room you were in, the woodwork was seamless and perfectly matched.
Exactly. That is a level of hidden expense and meticulousness that is almost impossible to imagine in modern construction. It wasn't just built to impress. It was built to satisfy an internal, almost obsessive aesthetic demand.
And the function followed the form. The library naturally featured cherry built-in bookcases. Even the master bathroom was luxurious for the time.
It was. It featured original tile that's still there today, a classic clawfoot bathtub, and an expansive marble sink. The documentation characterizes the mansion as one of the finest and most elaborate of any circa 1890-1910 period mansions in south-central Pennsylvania.
The sheer volume of wealth poured into the materials is just astounding. And adding to that interior grandeur is the stained glass.
Right. The original stained glass and leaded artwork are a real highlight, designed by the celebrated Rudy brothers of Pittsburgh. The centerpiece is an enormous 10-foot window that just floods the central hall with light and color.
So it wasn't just decorative, it was a way of using art to manipulate the light and atmosphere within that immense space.
Yes, precisely. And for all the American ambition, all the American commerce that funded this, the heart of the home remained deeply, deeply rooted in Peter T. Watt's Scottish origins.
That's right, he named the house Roslyn,
which pays homage to Roslyn, a village in Scotland near where he was raised on the farm The Boo in Rothisholme on the Orkney Islands. It's a direct link back to the landscape of his childhood.
And that link is sealed with an inscription that you find prominently carved into the mantel of the fireplace in the central hall, right near the bottom of the main staircase.
The carving reads, East-West Hame's Best.
Hame's Best.
It's a beautiful, succinct Scottish homily that translates roughly to, no matter where you go east or west, home is best.
And for a man who had traveled extensively, visiting Stronsay multiple times throughout his life, but who had chosen Lancaster as his permanent home and the base of his empire, it was an absolutely perfect sentimental touch.
It's the personal core hidden inside the public monument. I find that juxtaposition incredibly moving.
Me too. But as we move into the era of the Watt family actually living there, the human drama starts almost immediately.
Indeed. We move into Section 4. Life, luxury, and laundry, or maybe lack thereof. Peter T. Watt presented Roslyn to his wife, Laura Louise Geiger Watt, on or near her 38th birthday in 1896. This was his second wife. His first died in childbirth.
A monumental gift. But not everyone was equally delighted by its completion. The sources offer a great piece of family gossip involving his twin daughters.
Right. Annie and Catherine, who were about 13 years old at the time, were reportedly very upset about a social slight. The builder, after all his hard work, showed his own daughter the completed project before the Watt girls got their official viewing.
Gilded Age privilege meets preteen entitlement. What was the result?
The twins, in their peak, reportedly refused to speak to the builder's daughter for months afterward. It's a wonderful anecdote that reminds us that even inside a baronial castle, you still have intense teenage politics at play.
And the house itself had a pretty dramatic entry into domestic life. Just 2 months after the family moved in, the structure's integrity was tested by fire.
Yes. On May 10th, 1896, a basement fire was discovered. The working theory at the time, according to historical accounts, was that Laura Watt built a fire on the second floor and a stray ash landed near a pile of kindling or wood in the cellar, traveling down through an open fire grate.
That's a surprising hazard, but it's one that highlights the quality of the original construction.
Absolutely. The fire was quickly extinguished by a worker and the Lancaster city firemen, but the key is why it didn't spread. Because the house was built with a cement floor in the cellar and a thick plaster ceiling, the structure resisted the expansion of the flames.
So that saved the massive wooden interior from catastrophe. Watt had insisted on quality, and that quality immediately paid dividends.
It really did. But the family survived the accidental fire, only to later deal with a deliberate intrusion.
The burglary.
February 1st, 1911. It sounds almost like a scene from a movie. Laura and 3 of the daughters were having supper around 7 p.m. when they noticed the chandelier in the dining room swing.
That would definitely get my attention.
Yeah. They initially dismissed it, thinking it was just a maid moving about on the floor above, but it turned out to be a burglar who had managed to get inside.
And upon being disturbed, was making a hasty exit via the side porch.
Exactly. And the cost of that intrusion. The thief made off with $1,200 in jewelry. Adjusted for inflation, that's a significant haul, and another reminder that even a massive stone structure couldn't guarantee absolute security.
Now, a mansion of this scale wasn't just the main house, it was a full estate. Roslyn sat on a generous parcel of land, later listed as 2.14 acres, which required substantial infrastructure.
Including the carriage house.
Right.
The carriage house was essential. It was built in the same chateau-esque style as the main house, featuring that signature bell-shaped roof and Roman arches. The first floor was originally all about function. It held the horse stalls, and importantly, it also served as the garage when the family transitioned to automobiles.
And the second floor was residential.
Yes, it contained a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment, which was the permanent residence of the Watt family chauffeur. This arrangement just underscores the reliance on domestic staff that defined luxury in that period.
And as a final wonderful piece of historical flavor, there's that unexpected modern-day discovery related to the grounds.
Yeah, this is great. During the recent restoration, the crew working on the property came across a small tombstone.
A tombstone.
A memorial for one of Peter T. Watt's horses, buried somewhere on the vast property. It's an unexpected, deeply personal tribute, memorializing a utilitarian animal that was central to the Gilded Age lifestyle. It makes the whole estate feel less like a museum and more like a cherished home.
It provides a perfect transition point because up until now, we've been focusing on the opulence, the expense, and the personal touches that define the Watt era.
But now we move into the period where that grand lifestyle became a profound liability.
This is where the deep dive gets really profound, shifting from architectural glory to domestic misery, thanks to the incredibly detailed and remarkably candid memoir written by William W. Heidelbaugh.
Peter T. Watt's son-in-law?
Exactly. Heidelbaugh, married to Watt's daughter Catherine, moved into Roslyn in October 1934, deep in the Depression era. His account, written in 1943, doesn't just detail the move, it details the uncomfortability of living in a failing castle.
Heidelbaugh was very clear about the circumstances.
Yeah.
He refers to their move as an invitation, but explains it had a triple rationale. First, the reduction of income due to the Depression made the upkeep of Roslyn a crushing financial burden for Laurel Watt, the 75-year-old mistress.
And second, she was lonely.
She was lonely. And the third reason is pure social maneuvering. Heidelbaugh reveals that their move was also intended to facilitate the graceful departure of a burdensome resident, Mrs. Fuller, who had apparently overstayed her welcome.
So they were essentially moving in to restore social and financial order. They were utility, not guests.
Precisely. And Heidelbaugh quickly realized this was not a cost-saving measure for his family. Far from it.
He explicitly states in his journal that moving into the colossal mansion cost them significantly more than maintaining their modern, smaller Wheatland Avenue cottage.
He had assumed, maybe naively, that moving in would reduce their expenses. Instead, he starts quantifying the costs immediately.
What kind of costs?
He notes they immediately assumed the obligation of weekly wages for the domestic staff, Mary, Helen, and the chauffeur. That was a total of $40 per week, a substantial sum in 1934.
And on top of that, they were responsible for all the food and continuous maintenance issues.
Right. He cites precise figures, $40.75 for coal just to heat the garage, and $14.75 to repair the Pierce Arrow door that the chauffeur had managed to rip off a detail that clearly infuriated him.
Heidelbaugh's frustration seems to stem from realizing he traded luxurious modern comfort for antiquated inconvenience. His description of his wee cottage on Wheatland Avenue is a perfect contrast to Roslyn.
He paints his former life in glorious terms. The cottage was equipped for luxurious living. It had a modern Honeywell thermostat that warmed the house from a chilly 58 degrees overnight to a comfortable 70 degrees by 6 a.m.
So it was the 1930s equivalent of a smart home.
Pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
It featured modern crane Copa fixtures, pristine porcelain tiling, and the latest electric conveniences. An electric dishwasher, an electric ironer, and a gas-burning incinerator for easy waste disposal.
And then he returned to a Victorian relic. What was the first domestic discomfort he documented at Roslyn?
His assigned bedroom. Despite the mansion's 33 rooms, the grandeur just didn't translate to convenience. He was assigned a room with only a single closet, which he found highly inadequate. But his main complaint centered on the plumbing access.
The bathroom situation.
The nearest available bathroom was located at the diagonally longest distance possible on the second floor.
Oh, no.
And, adding insult to injury, it wasn't private. For 8 agonizing years, he shared that one distant bathroom with 5 other people.
The idea of sharing a single bathroom amongst 6 people in a 9,300 square foot house built as the pinnacle of luxury is just, it's almost comical.
It is. He mentions wryly that the years of modern luxury had softened him since his bachelor days, but necessity forced invention. He had to install 5 towel hooks, each marked with a small lettered brass tag, just to manage the flow of laundry.
It reduced the baronial castle to the status of a crowded boarding house.
Exactly. And if the traffic was bad, the supply was worse. The problem wasn't just using the bathroom. It was surviving the experience, particularly the lack of hot water and heat.
The heat deficiency was a primary source of complaint for him.
Yes. He blamed the old type of furnace and an indifferent caretaker. He recounts that during the freezing Lancaster winters, their teeth would be chattering until 9:30 a.m. because the massive stone structure took forever to warm up.
And the hot water struggle is legendary, or at least unprintable, as he says.
He gave up entirely on the concept of home tubbing for 8 years.
8 years, why?
Because the enemy was the laundress. He noted he never did succeed in getting to that bathroom on Monday mornings ahead of that laundress. She would start the weekly laundry and consume the entire supply of available hot water.
And his description of the resulting lack of hot water was so visceral that he wrote it was unprintable except on asbestos paper, which indicates a depth of frustration that transcends mere inconvenience. This is the personal toll of maintaining an antique system.
Precisely. The mechanical systems of 1896 were simply no match for the comfort expectations of 1934.
And the kitchen sounds equally inefficient. He described the Roslyn kitchen compared to his modern one.
He called the Roslyn kitchen really something, and not in a good way. It had a worn floor, bleached walls, inadequate radiation, meaning it was freezing in winter, and an inefficient combination coal and gas range.
Which required someone to shovel coal by the bucketful just to maintain a basic cooking temperature.
Yes. And the layout itself presented problems for modern entertaining. The stove was located in an inaccessible alcove, making large-scale cooking a logistical nightmare.
This became so acute that for their formal Christmas parties, they couldn't broil the turkeys effectively at home.
That's right. They had to borrow a hotel chef from downtown and physically transport their birds to a commercial kitchen to have them beautifully broiled.
Imagine hosting a Gilded Age dinner party in a baronial castle and having to outsource the main course because your combination coal and gas range couldn't handle it.
And the kitchen appliances constantly failed too. He recounts a hot day in 1935 when the old wooden-encased refrigerator quit completely. They were forced to transfer their modern GE refrigerator from their cottage just to save their food.
And then there are the truly unpleasant, mundane annoyances that just undermine the whole illusion of grandeur.
Heidelbaugh includes a list of infrastructure failures that are frankly embarrassing for a mansion of this status. There was a faulty brick garbage burner, which constantly annoyed the neighbors and, worse, attracted four-footed scavengers.
And, most tellingly,
there was the periodic overflow of an erratic cesspool.
The overflowing cesspool. That's the perfect metaphor for the collapse of the Gilded Age dream. All that Avondale stone, all that exotic woodwork, meant nothing when the most basic modern sanitation failed.
It highlights the difference between visible, show-off luxury, the turrets, the stained glass, and hidden utilitarian infrastructure. Roslyn was built at a time when running water and plumbing were new luxuries, not refined systems. By 1934, those early systems were archaic liabilities.
Amidst all this domestic exasperation, Heidelbaugh had one moment that sounded like a true mystery. The secret panel.
This is a great story. While building a makeshift storage space for his wife, because of course the grand home lacked adequate storage, Heidelbaugh was removing glass doors from a wall cabinet.
And as he worked, a panel suddenly slid back,
revealing a duckiest little secret chamber.
What did the panel conceal?
The chamber held 2 dust-covered bottles of dark brown liquid. He noted the liquid had an exhilarating odor, but the labels were faded and illegible.
Given that this was the height of Prohibition, the implication is pretty clear. A hidden stash, maybe liquor, dating back to the Roaring '20s?
Almost certainly. So what did the morally upright, exasperated son-in-law do with his potential historical treasure or illegal cash?
What did he do?
He quietly and regretfully emptied the contents into the drain. He resolved not to promote an unsolved mystery story, effectively closing the book on the secret life of Roslyn.
The man was clearly just done with the drama of the castle. By 1943, Heidelbaugh did the final, ultimate act of financial justification. He quantified the total annual burden of Roslyn.
He did. He calculated the total cost of owning Roslyn, excluding personal expenses like food, maids, lighting, and telephone, to be $4,268.70 per year.
And what was his damning comparison?
He pointed out that this figure was equivalent to $350 per month in 1943. And that amount, he noted, could easily cover a super deluxe apartment with steam heat and hot and cold running water, radio, and all other modern refinements.
So the price of maintaining the grandeur was the equivalent of living in supreme modern comfort elsewhere. That calculation was his final justification for wanting the house sold.
And Peter T. Watt had, in a way, provided the escape route. His will directed that the executors were to appraise the homestead and then offer it to his surviving children in order of age for that appraised sum.
And that 1943 appraisal is a powerful historical marker. What was Roslyn valued at then?
Just $25,000.
Wow.
Considering Watt's estate was valued at over $1.4 million in 1922, and the sheer expense poured into the stone and woodwork. That $25,000 appraisal shows how quickly Gilded Age grandeur could plummet into a functional and financial liability during the Depression and war years.
Okay, so let's fast forward several decades. The Watt family maintained ownership for over 70 years, finally selling it around the early 1970s. The next key era began when the Emlen family took over, specifically Lester Emlen, a masonry contractor, who owned it from 1974 until 2013.
And when the Emlens decided to sell, the difficulty of moving such a large, specialized, and functionally obsolete property became painfully clear. It sat on the market for over 5 years.
The listing price trajectory tells the whole story of its financial decline.
It's stunning. It was originally listed for nearly $5 million, dropped to $1.25 million, and by 2013 was listed at just $850,000. That massive reduction directly reflected what the listing agent called the functional obsolescence and condition of the property.
A neglected Gilded Age castle is not an easy thing to maintain or sell.
No, but every aging giant eventually finds its saviors. The new owners arrived in 2016, Dr. Gaspar Polizzi and Barbara O'Neill.
And they purchased the main mansion for $1 million. And their discovery was accidental.
It was. They were initially looking at a significantly larger property, the 14,000 square foot Brook Mansion in Birdsboro, but they deemed it simply too immense to manage. Roslyn, with its 33 rooms and 9,320 square feet, was deemed more manageable.
That is truly a unique standard for manageable.
It is. When they acquired it, the sources describe it as a manor in disrepair.
Let's detail the state of the structure.
It was in rough shape. Years of neglect had resulted in extensive damage from leaks to walls and floors. Outside, vegetation was literally damaging the massive front porch, and the large pond was failing. Inside, the plumbing was in crisis.
Only one toilet worked.
And another had partially fallen through the floor, which is a grim echo of Heidelbaugh's earlier complaints.
The owners immediately dedicated themselves to the cleanup.
Barbara O'Neill called it a massive undertaking. Their initial work was intensive and personal, removing debris, tearing up what she described as miles and miles and miles of carpeting, and tackling the ivy infestation on the exterior.
And they had to freeze dry and power wash it away.
Right. But O'Neill also noted that despite the disrepair, the structure held strong. She said it was undeniably finely designed and very, very well constructed.
That's the saving grace of Urban's work. Roslyn was a building so well constructed that it refused to succumb to time and neglect. That original quality gave the new owners a foundation for the meticulous 6-year restoration.
And let's talk about some of the detailed restoration challenges they faced, because this is where the commitment to preservation really shines. The parquet floor, for example.
Okay.
The original parquet floor on the 3rd floor had sustained significant damage. This was caused by a chronic leak from a balcony roof where an outdated, heavy AC compressor unit had been housed.
A perfect modern example of functional obsolescence causing historical damage.
Exactly. Fixing that kind of flooring is incredibly specialized work. It required painstaking, piece-by-piece hand restoration. Workers used the original variety of wood mahogany, maple, and oak, and then had to meticulously match the stain and aging to blend seamlessly with the rest of the nearly 130-year-old floor.
A restoration philosophy that prizes historical integrity over just simple replacement.
Absolutely. The bathrooms, surprisingly, held up better in terms of materials. Most of the original tile was in fantastic shape, only needing deep cleaning and sealing.
But the plumbing systems, as Heidelbaugh knew, were another story.
Right. You mentioned the tiny coachman's bathroom near the porte cochere. It features an absolutely original toilet, a fascinating artifact, which required the specialist plumbing company, R.E. Walton, to completely rebuild its internal mechanisms to get it working again.
Instead of just resorting to a modern swap-out, that's expensive deep-dive preservation.
It is. Only one bathroom was fully modernized, leaving the rest historically intact. And another amazing element they saved was the antique service lift.
Oh, right. This was added later, likely around the 1920s.
Yes. And at some point, the antique hydraulics failed, and instead of fixing it, someone simply nailed it shut and used it as a closet.
So the contractor, Ryan Fulmer, noted that finding a specialist who could rehab 100-year-old lift parts was a major hurdle.
But they succeeded. They found a specialist, and the lift was restored to full working order. It now safely holds up to 500 pounds.
And Barbara O'Neill lovingly refers to the restored lift as the butler.
She does. She uses it frequently for hauling things, most often Christmas decorations, which is a wonderful modern utility for an antique feature.
They also ensured the home's fire feature, both functional and sentimental, was fully operational again.
All 7 of the home's fireplaces now work. 4 of them, including the one with the crucial East-West Hame's best Scottish inscription, were converted to gas for convenience and safety.
And the original cast iron insert in that central hall fireplace was beyond saving.
Right. It had to be replaced by a blacksmith, again emphasizing the specialized labor required.
And the crowning glory, the woodwork, simply needed love.
The incredible variety of original woodwork, the cherry, walnut, mahogany, those rare maples, mostly just needed cleaning and light refinishing. This speaks loudest to the original quality. See, Emlen Urban and Peter T. Watt insisted upon. The wood itself was so fine it didn't warp or degrade dramatically over a century.
Even the original Rudy Brothers stained glass was largely untouched.
Except for a third-floor skylight damage during construction, which was flawlessly repaired by red rose stained glass.
So, while the main mansion restoration was painstaking and expensive, the carriage house restoration faced a true catastrophe.
The carriage house story is dramatic. To facilitate the 2016 sale of the mansion, the 4,000-square-foot carriage house was subdivided onto its own 1.1-acre property.
And it was purchased in December 2019 for $325,000 by Scott and Heather Bowser, who own the Mount Hope Estate and Winery.
Right. They plan to convert the unimproved stable area and the vacant second-floor apartment into their ideal modern home, a dream project.
That dream turned into a nightmare project on Christmas Day 2020.
It did. They'd begun excavation work for a new basement addition, and suddenly the entire back wall of the historic carriage house just collapsed.
Catastrophic structural failure. The cause remains officially undetermined, but a major storm had passed through the night before.
And Scott Bowser, who had prior experience in historic rehabilitation, immediately committed to fixing it, despite the massive financial and logistical setback.
This required utilizing specialist masons and strictly adhering to federal historical standards to ensure the rebuild was accurate.
And that adherence to historical standards is what drives the cost through the roof. They had to custom formulate the mortar to match the color and composition of the original 1896 material.
The initial renovation estimate was $300,000, but after the collapse.
The revised building permit filed in August 2021 pegged the construction cost at a massive $750,000.
That's almost triple the original renovation budget, and it's entirely in addition to the original $325,000 purchase price.
And the effort and expense required for accuracy are astonishing. He had to send the large fractured top stones that broke during the fall all the way to a quarry in Indiana to be replicated exactly.
Wow, you can't just find matching, uniquely cut Avondale stone at the local supply yard.
Not a chance. It confirms the specialty, the effort, and the expense involved in preserving these level 1 landmarks.
By early 2022, the wall was 90% rebuilt, and the Bowsers have ambitious future plans for the structure, blending the old exterior with modern luxury.
Their plans include a new 3-door basement garage that will be cleverly hidden by the grade of the property, 3 bedrooms upstairs, and a large first-floor orangery with a stone fireplace.
So both Roslyn Mansion and the carriage house, though they faced wildly different challenges, demonstrate an incredible commitment to historic preservation that defines this chapter of their story.
Which leads us to the enduring legacy and recognition of Roslyn.
Its position in American architectural history is unquestionable. It is listed on the National Register of Historic Places and maintains its designation as a Significance Level 1 site.
It truly represents the architectural peak of its period in the region.
Yeah.
The structure itself and the preservation effort is a testament to the original quality of construction by C. Emlen Urban.
And the restoration effort by Palissy and O'Neill, which earned them a 2018 Preservation Award, validates the idea that this was a building that was simply too well constructed to fail.
It literally refused to succumb to time and neglect. And the mansion continues to inspire awe. Passersby still look and dream, according to accounts from recent public tours. It's an iconic piece of local history that powerfully communicates the height of Gilded Age commerce.
But the true value of this deep dive, for me, lies in the contrast. We started with Peter T. Watt's vision, the public presentation of Roslyn as a symbol of untouchable Gilded Age success.
And we ended with the private reality, so painfully documented in William Heidelberg's journal just a few decades later. The architectural grandeur that was built to impress the world eventually became a constant, immense cost, both financial and personal, for the people who had to live within its antiquated walls.
It meant shared bathrooms, teeth-chattering cold, unreliable hot water thanks to the ever-present laundress, and most humiliatingly, the periodic overflow of that erratic cesspool.
The effort required to maintain this architectural grandeur was equivalent to living in a super deluxe apartment. And the restoration efforts today, the custom mortar, the hand-restored parquet, the six-figure commitment to rebuilding a collapsed wall, show that the true cost of that grandeur hasn't fundamentally changed. It still demands specialized, immense sacrifice.
So, Roslyn's story forces us to consider a fundamental question that spans across all eras of architecture. What does the disparity between the public image and the private inconvenience tell us about the true value of a home?
Is the effort to preserve a castle worth the struggle? Or should a home prioritize comfort and efficiency over impression?
And how much of modern architectural ambition is still driven by the desire to impress the outside world, rather than to serve the comfort of those who live within?
That's a provocative thought for you to carry forward as you look at the architecture in your own world, reflecting on this remarkable deep dive into the stone, wood, and secrets of the Roslyn Mansion.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Uncharted Lancaster podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a rating or review wherever you listen. It really helps more people discover the show. For more fascinating local history, visit unchartedlancaster.com. And if you'd like to go deeper, check out one of Adam Zern's books at unchartedlancaster.com/books. Until next time, keep exploring.